Let's get started. I always almost feel like a robot. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining KQL Cafe. No, honestly, it's really great to see you all coming up live. Really appreciate it. And yeah, it's April already. And actually, as always, Johnny and myself who are organizing this event. And today we have a returning guest, Bert-Jan. So the agenda, nothing changes. What's new? We have quite a couple of new things that might be of your interest. Then we'll have Bert-Jan talking about his life in KQL nowadays. I forgot to scrap that one. We have no learnings today, but of course, as always, the category, what did you do with KQL this month? Now, before I actually gonna jump into the news, let me also share with you a little bit of an outlook. So we have been busy. While Johnny and I were in Seattle last month, we were able to talk with a lot of people from the community. So coming up next month in May, we have Mikhailos and his friend talking about a very exciting project. So if you don't have any appointments, of course, every KQL show is great, but there's a big surprise coming here. They are working on brewing something here, not beer, but something with KQL. Then we have Thomas joining us. For those of you who know Thomas, he does all the magic around identity and now knows how to get things out of all those logs. We then have Mona from the US. She also works for a Microsoft security provider and has deep knowledge in all things like KQL, but also she will talk in this session about Copilot and how they some proof of concepts and some solutions she has been building, and what's especially nice, although she works for a company that also needs to earn money like we all have to do, but she's willing to share some of the work she has been doing in this space. Yeah, and then in October, so you see a little gap. We're still working on the September slot, and then in October we have Johan also joining us. So yeah, for the rest of the year, we have a nice lineup. Another thing I wanted to quickly remind you that if you've missed anything, we have our show notes here on KQLCafe.com. So you can basically just go there and see the recording, the host, the guests, and then a summary of everything that we discussed. And no, this is not ChatGPT generated. We still do this all by hand. And kind of funny because some people ask me all the time, where can I start learning KQL? I don't find anything on KQL Cafe. And ironically, our platform is here to allow people to learn and grow into KQL. But we didn't have any references. So I've just added last month here, and I'll continue to expand this, a Learn KQL page on our KQLCafe.com page with all the things I believe is worth knowing. First of all, KQL search, a great inspiration, whether you're just starting with KQL or advanced. I basically use KQL search almost every day because I don't want to reinvent the wheel, and I want to know what my virtual friends are up to. Then a book. I also want to highlight Definitive Guide to KQL, authored by Matt Zorich and all his colleagues within Microsoft. Azure Data Explorer, a little reminder, that's the free platform where you can experiment as well. Of course, Kusto Detective Agency. We talk about that momentarily as well. There's a new episode coming up, but you can still, sign up for the old ones. Then, of course, Rock Trent, 3 years ago, legendary. He started the whole must-learn I just see I make a typo. Sorry for that. Must-learn KQL series. There is a GitHub repository. There's a book, even an e-paper, and YouTube channel. Then Blue Raven Academy. I want to do a special shout out here because Mehmet has just made the entry course free of charge for always, as long as Blue Raven exists. Of course, it's always funny when you buy something like, even some private gear and it says lifetime guarantee. You just hope that that will survive for the rest of your life. But really a cool move. So that he opened this in the Blue Raven Academy. So check that out. Then there's the 10 Minutes KQL YouTube series. I don't know who's actually behind it because the person doesn't expose his name, but also very useful YouTube videos to learn KQL, as it says, within 10 minutes. So all small episodes. But he also added a longer training session. And last but not least, of course, you will find a lot of useful resources, hopefully, on KQLCafe, in our show notes, in our YouTube channel, and of course on Microsoft Learn KQL, because it's meanwhile everywhere in various technologies. You will find it in Defender, in Intune, etc. So take a look at Microsoft Learn, just search for KQL, and you will find a lot of training resources available there as well. Good, let's switch back to our presentation. So what's new? Just another Kusto Hacker. So this is an initiative that was launched, I believe, in early April. It's a challenge, and the challenge is to basically come up with a query that outputs just another Kusto Hacker. So all your creativity, you can use, Regex, whatever, external data. The whole point is that in the very end, the output of your query shows just another Kusto Hacker. So if you're interested, if you're creative, go to this link and you will find all the instructions. I believe the submission time will run until 1st of May, so you have to hurry up. And then there is a voting happening on the best and most creative query to output just another Kusto Hacker. Then I'm super pleased to also announce here that this year we will have another Kusto conference that will take place on November 6th. Now, last year, Johnny and I, we gathered with all the speakers in a physical location in Amsterdam. So that at least we, among us with the speakers, we had a nice dinner in the evening. And now this year, we want to open this to a wider audience. So stay tuned on KustoCon.com. I hope that in the next 2 weeks, we can make the website public. Right now, if you go there, you will see still under construction. But basically, the agenda is as following. If you like to travel to Switzerland, Zurich Airport, Microsoft, who is our room sponsor, will give us their conference center. In the morning, we will have KQL workshops led by Mr. Bert-Jan and Johnny. So they are right now thinking of, what would be a great workshop content. If you have any ideas, feel free to submit them here. And in the afternoon, we are going to live stream various sessions, and we have some cool speakers, a great speaker lineup, and those sessions will be available, of course, for those that are on site as well as online. So mark your agenda, November 6th. We'll start on site in the morning at 9 o'clock. And if you like to join online, that will start at 1 o'clock Central European Time. Then we have another Kusto Detective agency coming up. This time a little bit different because now it's not about just you sitting alone in your room or in your office and solving those problems. But this time we kind of have a double challenge because you have to form a team and you will have, I believe, 42 hours to solve the quest here. Again, here you have the registration link. Here's a cool video giving you a little bit of a teaser what this is all about. And of course the rules. And according to the promotional video and the information here, you can really win big prizes. I believe it's up to $10,000 that you can win as a team if you solve this quest. So again, mark your dates if you're interested. Try to build a team with your peers, with your colleagues, with your internet friends who you know, they know KQL, and then take up the challenge. Then going more into the news regarding updates, within Defender XDR, a new table has surfaced. It's called the OAuthAppInfo. So if you know Defender XDR, we have the whole app governance module within Defender for Cloud Apps. And now with the OAuthAppInfo Table, we can basically parse information out of all the app legislations that you have within your tenant. And of course, that's why I highlighted this here. Go to KQL search, just paste OAuthAppInfo, and you will find a number of community submitted queries already around this, notable from Bert-Jan, from Thomas Naunheim, myself, but it was really a basic one, basically just doing a project on the table. But yeah, take a look. And of course, there's great possibilities because we can now query information about what permissions apps have. And if you're interested even in creating alert rules in Sentinel or in Defender to to alarm when there's over privileges, etc. So that's a great addition coming to Defender XDR. So right now it's available, it's just in preview mode. Then also, I would say very important, because there might be some breaking changes. Historically, we had an IdentityInfo table in Defender XDR, and we have always had one also in Microsoft Sentinel. And it was always a little bit a bouncing, at least for me, because in the Sentinel table, you had interesting attributes that were not available in Defender XDR and vice versa. And now they are planning to merge those. So basically, whether you have Defender XDR, and this information, of course, is fed by Defender for Identity, or you have Microsoft Sentinel, where basically behind the scenes, when you go into UEBA settings and you configure UEBA, Active Directory, and Actra ID, this information is also consolidated, and they are now merging this. So on one hand, we have a couple of new columns, and I just extracted the most important information from the message center announcement. So I hope you all know what it is. If you are in Microsoft Office 365, go to the message center, and there you find all the news and important updates coming along in your tenant. And there's a more detailed article explaining about all the changes. But as you can see, there are some new attributes. And my second slide that I had prepared for this has gone missing. But there are also some breaking changes. So please, if you know that you have IdentityInfo related hunting queries, whatever, take a look. because they will change in the coming weeks. Yeah, and with that, I'm basically done with the news, and I'm very pleased to bring our guest Bert-Jan back into KQL Cafe.
Thank you, Alex. I think it has been 2-3 years since I attended.
Yeah, if we don't count KustoCon, yes.
Yes,
Indeed.
all right.
Yeah.
All right, let me quickly share my screen and get started. I promise you not to bring slides, and I lied. I have some slides for you because I do think I need to introduce the topic slightly to ensure that everyone can follow it, and then we can go from there. Alex, if you can confirm that you can see a PowerPoint presentation.
I can confirm that I see a PowerPoint presentation.
Perfect. All right. Thanks all for joining. Let's get started. I will discuss a bit about KQL, as is expected in KQL Cafe, a bit about APIs, logic apps, and maybe a bit more. So let's just dive into the topic. Well, maybe quick question or quick introduction. Who am I? Well, I'm Bert-Jan. I do some stuff with KQL. I am a defensive security expert in the global CSIRT at ING. I mainly respond to, let's say, the more critical security incidents, but have a background in a lot of blue team related roles within security. And I think many of you have seen some of my content either on KQL Search, KQL Query, or the tools and queries on the individual GitHub pages. And maybe also to mention for the slide deck or the whole session that I will give, if you have questions or do want to interact, feel free to do so. Always happy to make it a bit more interactive. Well, let's start about why would we even want to use an API? Well, I think most of the people that I see in the call, I see a lot of familiar faces, a lot of familiar names. And I know all those people would really like to automate stuff, either because it's more efficient or they do not want to do a repeated task. And APIs, of course, introduce the potential for example, playbooks in terms of incidents. You can enrich incidents, you can build certain integrations, you can easily do reporting. And I think there are many more scenarios available why you would want to use the API. Well, then the question is, which APIs can we use if we want to use KQL? There are 3 mainstream APIs available. The first one is the Azure Monitor API, which only works for Sentinel data, not only for Sentinel data. So it's basically for all your data that is in Log Analytics workspace. That can either be connected to a Sentinel environment, or it can be just a Log Analytics workspace somewhere in your Azure tenant. We also have the Graph API, which can do both. It can do data in Defender XDR, and it can do data in Sentinel, depending on the setup that you use. And I will come to that later on. And then we also have the Defender ATP API, which is I think the oldest API to collect all the logs, at least query the logs, which is basically for all the MDE related events. So I also put a yellow warning there. It's quite a limited API compared to the other 2 that we have available. Well, then the most interesting part: what are the supported tables? I think most of you are mainly interested in the green parts, which is what is available. Where can I use KQL? And let's quickly go over the individual APIs. Well, for the Azure Monitor API, it does look very bad because the majority of it is red, but that is mainly because all the parts on the top are Defender XDR content, and all the tables in there are not queryable using the Azure Monitor API. However, all the data that you have in Sentinel, you can query through the API. So all your connectors, all the data for your connectors, but also all your custom logs, you can query them using the Azure Monitor API. For the Graph API, if you have unified XDR enabled, you can query both Sentinel and XDR data. So you have full visibility if you use this API, which is, I think, very good and for sure worth the investment. If you have the Graph API, but you do not have unified XDR enabled, you only get the XDR data. So the Sentinel data is excluded. And if you have the Defender ATP API, you would only get the device-related tables, and the device vulnerability management related tables. So basically all the tables that start with device something. And this already shows, I think, the potential, especially for the Graph API, because this table has the majority of the support. If you do not run Unified XDR yet, I recommend both Graph API and Azure Monitor API to be used to query your data. But what permissions do you use? Do you need to have? Well, all of them require admin consent, so you always have to go to someone that can approve your permissions. For the Azure Monitor API, you need Log Analytics API data read permissions. The Graph API needs threat hunting read all permissions. And the Defender ATP API needs to have Windows Defender ATP advanced query read all permissions, and they all require admin consent. So if we have that all enabled, where can we then use it? There are a lot of places where you can use the API. I think some of the more logical places are Azure Logic Apps or Azure Functions, which is mainly the tools that a lot of people use on top of Sentinel to automate certain activities. And alternatively, you could use it in PowerShell or in Python or any other script language that you feel comfortable with, and that supports the API. And I think quite a lot of languages are currently supported for all the APIs I just mentioned. So if you want to get started on the PowerShell part, I have some scripts already available where you can use the Graph API to run KQL queries from the PowerShell API and then do your magic around it, because it's mainly to either quickly get some data or to maybe put that data somewhere else or convert it in PowerShell, depending on the use case that you have. And soon there will be blogs on this topic, both for the PowerShell as well as for some logic apps. So feel free to refresh KQLquery.com a few times in the upcoming weeks, and I'm sure there will be some more content available for you. All right, for the API and the logic apps, we again have a list of APIs, and then if there is a connector available, well, for the Azure Monitor API, it's very easy. There's a connector available, which is the Azure Monitor Logs connector. If you connect that in your logic app, it is a wrapper around the API. If you have set off the permissions, you can just put in a query and select which resource you want to run it, and you can execute it. For the Graph API, there is no connector available, but luckily we have the availability to run HTTP requests, and then you can also query it in the logic app. And then we have the Defender ATP API, which also has a connector for easy use. And then for all of those, I have an example later on and a comparison between the output data, which is already quite useful. So you would get something like this, and I'm not sure. Can you see my mouse itself? I see Alex nodding, so I'm assuming that's yes. Perfect. And we do see a question, or we did see a question. What are all thumbs up that they can see it? Basically, we have a logic app. It initializes a query, and on this side we can see the wrapper for the Azure Monitor API. Then we see a wrapper for the Defender ATP API. And then the right side, you see it gets a little bit more complicated. But for the Graph API, we can also execute the query and get the results. But the setup for that is a bit more difficult. But once you have done it once or cloned a logic app that has done it once, it's quite convenient. And it is the same for all the Graph endpoints that you want to call in a logic app. For the logic apps, it's basically just it's a simplified solution for the API. So the logic app connector creates a wrapper for you, which makes it easy to integrate it with other security tools. For example, for the wrappers for Defender or Sentinel, or another wrapper that you may want to have, maybe Teams integrations or Outlook integrations. And I just want to present today some KQL-centric solutions in logic apps, for example, especially to automate and make results look pretty, because a KQL table can look pretty. A KQL visualization can look pretty, but you can do some more stuff around it to make it even better, especially if you want to present this to management as well. And also to show some enrichment and comparison examples. And then, yes, sorry, Alex, I brought some slides. They may be boring, so it's time for a small demo. I need to switch screens. I did see a hand raised in the meantime somewhere, but I think it's already done. So I'm assuming that either the question is not needed anymore or they mistakenly put their hand up.
Let me check. No question.
Right. Then you should be able to see my screen again.
Yes.
Perfect. I'll just first walk you through how can we run KQL API. I've, by the way, chosen for the demos to focus on the Logic Apps because they are a standardized solution for Azure functions or either other custom script. It really depends a bit on which scripting language you use. But basically in the backend, it's the same if you do a for loop or if you do a query execution. It's basically the same, but then it is more written in code. I think this makes it understandable for everyone, at least. I think everyone that joins. So I have a KQL API comparison logic app running. Well, what does it do? It initializes a query. What this query does, it basically combines all the tables that we have. It summarizes, it creates a count by the amount of events that I have in each table, and it sorts them by total. So it is quite simple. The wrapper in the Logic app does this, the majority of the stuff for you. It basically selects which subscription, which resource group, which log analytics workspace, and what query do I want to run. And in this case, the time base has been set in the query already, so I do not need to select it. I could also manually override it. And as it is just a simple KQL query, the same KQL query can be used in the Defender connector. You can see that this wrapper is even easier. The only thing you need to configure, as long as you have the right permissions, you only need to input the query and it will execute and give you results. Well, for the graph query, it is a little bit more complicated. As I did not want to have plain text secrets in my Logic app, I get the secrets from a Azure Key Vault. And I need to connect to the Graph API. So I need to call the Graph API endpoint with a specific client ID and a secret that I have to verify my credentials to get the right tokens to be able to execute the Graph endpoint call. So what do I get in return? I get the access token, when does it expire, and what kind of token do I have? And with that token that I have, I can talk to the graph run hunting query endpoint, and I can execute the query that I have on the top. And I need to put the authorization header with the token that I collected. If I then move back to the overview and just show you, let's not do the failed one, but show the one that worked. You can see if we would execute this, we have initialized the query, and we can see, right, we get output. So for Sentinel, we said this can only go into the Sentinel data. That's something we see. For example, we see the threat intelligence indicator, Sentinel health tables, security events, Azure diagnostics, log analytics, query logs. I also see device file events, and that's only because I forward all the tables that they can from XDR to Sentinel. But you have to trust me on this one. This is only all the Sentinel tables that I have available. And this list is quite long, and you can quite easily see how many events I have per table. If I move over to the Defender one, you see, all right, it already starts with, instead of threat intelligence indicator, it starts with the device table. So I have the vulnerabilities catalog, I have the file events, registry events, device events. And you can see the pattern continues. There are only device-related tables in these results, concluding we have a limited table set that we can use. Lastly, if I open the graph connection, you can see, by the way, for the people that use Logic Apps often, please consider to use secure inputs and outputs if you work with tokens and with secrets. Otherwise, if someone were to go to your Logic app, you click on the run execution, you will be able to see the secret that has been used or the token that has been issued. and you can see it on the, let's say the log here that secure inputs or outputs have been enabled. So I would not be able to read the contents of the secret or the contents of the token that I requested. This query executes for a very long time. Do not ask me why. Well, maybe I do know because I collect all the logs, but if we go down, we see again a very familiar table, the threat intelligence indicator, which is the data that we have from Sentinel. Then we try to move down a bit more. For example, we also see exposure node graphs, nodes. Those can at the moment, I think, not be forwarded to Sentinel. So with that, we can conclude that the graph API endpoint is able to get both the logs from Defender XDR as well as the logs from Sentinel, which is, in my opinion, if you want to use the API and you have unified XDR enabled, the Graph API is the way to go if you want to automate stuff. Especially if you want to future-proof your automation, please use the Graph API endpoint because you already have data from both sides. And if you want to use enrichment or do other stuff, this is for sure the one that will give you the most results and most value for your input. All right. That's the first quick example just to show the comparison. From there, I quickly want to jump over to one of the logic apps that I currently use quite a lot, at least it runs weekly. Well, what does this do? This is a logic app that sends me a scheduled email every week with all the new table actions that they found in the tables that they have. So what does it do? It runs every week. And it runs two queries. We start on the left side. What does it do? It collects the data. I will just quickly, let's just go through it together. As this is the KQLCafe, and we can quickly discuss it. So it basically says, what is the time frame I want to collect the logs from? I know, yes, it's not possible to get the logs from Defender for 180 days unless it's in Sentinel. What is the schedule that I have? What are the known actions in my environment? And what is an action? Well, that's basically all the unique action types in Defender. I collect them. If I then go down, I again do the same activity, but I want to ensure that in the last 7 days, this activity has, let's say, the first parts of the month, this has not been seen, and I want to confirm it in the last 7 days. This action type also has not been seen, then I want to report on it. The output that I get is basically JSON, and I create an HTML table from it and put it in an email. I do the same for Sentinel, and let's quickly run this query. That's why not. Gives you a better example. Let's hope that there is something new in the environment. I will zoom in a little bit. So basically, I look 180 days back. Are there activities? What are all the known activities from the last 118 days minus 7? And then what are the activities that are new from the last 7 days? And apparently in my environment, the following action type have not been seen in the past 180 days, but have been seen in the last 7 days. And this might be very interesting to you because this either can be new data, new action types that have been added. This can be anomalies in your data because for the last 180 days, this did not happen in your environment. Maybe this is strange activity, or maybe Microsoft updated one of the action types and you now know about it. What I did within Defender XDR, every table has, let's say, an action type column. In Sentinel, this is not the same. So what did I do? I extend a new field called action, and it basically says for the first non-null value, put it in there. So if the operation is filled, the action will be an operation. If the operation name is filled, it will be an operation name. Otherwise, operation name value, otherwise the action type, and otherwise it will be the event ID. And if you have more tables which have a custom, let's say, action type, you can add it to this coalesce function and get it in your actions. So you're not limited to the action types only, but you have the information available from all the tables that have, let's say, unique action identifier in their tables. And this is then scheduled and sent by a report to me. I think I even prepared something here that, for example, I would get an email like this. Hey, this is the information that you received from the past week. I have new security events. I have new office activity. I have new identity directory events. I have new email post delivery events, device events, and cloud app events, which is very interesting data if you work in especially from a blue team perspective, to see what new data is available for me to use. And this Logic app is, by the way, already available on GitHub, and I can share the links with Alex later. Then he can put them in the session notes.
Yeah, and maybe to add here two things. This is, for example, thanks to Bert-Jan's methodology, how I found out, I shared them in the chat, that around the automatic attack disruption, there are some interesting device event action types. So if you ever had an automated attack disruption active in your environment, you might be interested in the query that I just shared. And if I may quickly do some brackets open, Bert-Jan, if you can quickly go back to the log analytics query.
Of course.
Yeah, because I wanted to add this to the slides, but I forgot. But not sure since how long this is, but just a little reminder and something I've noticed. So on the right side, you have this KQL mode, of course, and simple mode. But, and I don't know since when that's actually active, but if you look, if you don't provide anywhere time generated is, the default is always to show 1,000 results. And I mean, maybe it's me because, as some of you know, I have a bad sight, but I've even figured when looking over the shoulders of my customers that, when I ask them to run something and export, it's not always very visible to people that actually the default is to only show 1,000 results. So if you're working on larger data sets, be aware that if you don't, specify anything, where of course it would switch to, defined in query, be aware that if you want to have the full results, that you will have to take a manual action by basically selecting, max limit. Yeah. And there's no way currently to set it as a default. I'm sure Microsoft does this for a reason, to avoid that the system gets unnecessarily.
You can set it, right? If you put it here, set max column, put it at, and then it should do what it expected. But then you need to add this to every query.
Yeah.
I'll put it in the chat.
So now your result is below 1,000 anyway.
Yeah, it's below 1,000 then. But we can quickly security events, live demo. What can go wrong? Let's go 30 days. I still have 1,000, so that's not work.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe it's because this still overrides it. If you do it like this.
Yeah.
It is. That's
exactly.
100,000.
Yeah. So yeah, just wanted to bring that one up. I've running a couple of times. I noticed I have to change that to get the full results.
Nice one, Alex. All right. Then I'm moving onwards to something that I also use quite often, is the CISA KEV vault. For those that do not know, it's the organization in the organization in the US, the cybersecurity organization, and they have a known exploitable vulnerabilities catalog, basically saying, all right, this is a critical vulnerability which is known to be exploited by actors, and they advise the government agencies in the US to patch within a certain time frame, but you can use it as a good measure point to see how critical a particular vulnerability is, and it's good to stay updated on it. I have a Logic app that uses the APIs a lot. The first part is basically only initializing stuff. I will skip it for now. We're not in the Logic app session, but it's basically saying, where do I need to pull the data from? And I run some queries. And we'll just discuss the queries while we're at it. And then we go on and on. And then simple mode, KQL mode. So what does this do? Let me quickly run it. It collects using external data. It collects the data from the CISA API itself. Then it puts that in a table, and I will go back a little bit longer because apparently there are no entries added for the last 7 days. The last 14 days, you can see that between last 14 days ago and the week of now, a few vulnerabilities have been added to the non-exploitable vulnerability vault. And this is information that I want to receive on a weekly basis, or maybe you want to receive it even more. In my case, I want to receive this weekly to see what are the CISA KEV entries for the last week, and do I need to take action on that? Well, we can use KQL to advise on this. So this is the first one. I collect all the CISA KEV entries, and the Azure Monitor API is really useful because you can already put a chart that you want to output. So I do not need to write it myself, but it can chart an HTML table, a bar chart, a pie chart, or a time chart. And I can use this as output. Another one is the Azure Monitor API does only have access to Sentinel data. But with the Defender ATP API, we can get access to the actual information in Defender to check, are there devices in my environment vulnerable for those CVEs? So if you go back to the query that we just had, hey, for example, here, there is a vulnerability in a Microsoft product. And Defender for Endpoint will find the vulnerabilities on the CVEs for Microsoft. Not all the products in the CISA KEV vault will be found by Defender because a lot of the devices cannot be onboarded to Defender, for example. But if we go back, we can, again, copy the query, but in this time, put it in advanced hunting. We again pull the data from the non-exploitable vulnerability catalog. We check, hey, what are the new CISA KEV entries for the past 7 days? Apparently in my environment, I don't have any for the last 7 days. We'll just check last 30 days. Then we can check the device TVM software vulnerability table to see if there is any vulnerability in my environment based on any of the ones that have been added in this time the last month. And I can list those CVEs and devices. I, in this case, join some more device information to get some context, because you want to know, all right, how many servers are impacted. Maybe you want to know how many device groups of, let's say, your tier 0, tier 1, tier 2 devices are impacted. Then I summarize the data. So I collect the statistics per CVE. All right, so how many total vulnerable devices do I have? And how many vulnerable workstations do I have? And how many vulnerable servers do I have? And I sort them eventually per CVE ID, which gives quite useful context already, because I do not only know that the CISA vulnerability has been added, but I can also directly know, all right, did it also impact one of the devices that I have onboarded, or at least the devices that I have onboarded to MDE. If we want to continue this, we can also collect what are the top 10 most active CISA KEV vulnerabilities in my environment to maybe prioritize patching, or to get them into, let's say, the next month's vulnerability process. And then I will again share the query. It's a slight modification of what we previously had. The beginning is still the same. We collect the non-exploited vulnerability CVE IDs. In this case, I list all the CVE IDs. And then I check the vulnerabilities itself. I check where's the vulnerability. Again, use some additional information. And then I check, all right, what is this vulnerability? In this case, apparently Microsoft is the most used, because I only have some Microsoft tooling running on the service. But if there were software that is not only Microsoft, but is vulnerable, it will also end up, as long as the device has been onboarded to MDE, of course. Now you can already see the difference. In this case, in this Logic app, to go back, I use already multiple APIs in the same Logic app to contextualize the results a bit more. And I think in the future, I will probably change this to only use Graph API, because now I use 2 different APIs to connect it. But in the future, it would make sense to only use the Graph API to talk to both endpoints. Lastly, I do a bar chart vendor year to date, and we can execute this again in Sentinel. Similar logic. we collect the data, we get the known exploited vulnerabilities from the CISA, we check, all right, has it been added at least in this year, and we summarize it by a total of 10. You will now see, all right, this is quite a, let's say, boring HTML overview, but we can chart this, and then we can see, all right, what are the vendors that have the most vulnerabilities, and which vendors you may want to get away from in the upcoming year, because you do not want to patch that much anymore. And what do we then have? Well, I put all this information together in a report and I send it out. And then I now have talked about all the KQL stuff, and I said in the presentation already, we can make this look pretty. Well, let's do it with some HTML magic. And I'll quickly show you that first. I basically have a whole HTML template that basically reads the output from the KQL queries that we use in the API, puts them in the right place, and then we can get a lovely report like this. Basically saying, all right, what are the updates from the last week? What are the entries that we have? What are the vulnerable devices in my environment? In this case, I have 4 vulnerable servers that I need to patch for this week. What are the top 10 most active CVEs in the list? And what is the bar chart year to date where I need to focus on? All right.
That's super cool.
And then you get really lovely reports, especially the power combining, let's say, the schedule reporting that you have in Logic Apps with the KQL power that you have to collect the data and then outputting it as HTML to make it look a little bit more pretty. You can get very interesting results, which I really like to have. And I think I have another one on this as well about Sentinel SLA response reporting. It's basically a similar combination. We can have Logic App, very similar structure as before. We initialize everything where I want to send it to. We can have some data. So I have a lovely query. I think this is the longest query of the whole presentation. It's only 28 rows. So what we do, I first let it run. I have some data in this KQL query. The first is what I said, I have SLA variables. So every company has different SLA variables. To make it easy, I have made a table with what severity do I have and what are the SLAs to it. In this case, I have time to respond, time to contain, and the update interval that I need to have. I say, all right, what is the start time and the end time that I want to filter on to not have it going back years to talk about old incidents, but let's talk about the most new incidents. I only collect the instance where the status is closed. And I extend some fields to have the analyst that did the actual work. I also standardize the analyst a bit to make sure that sometimes you have an uppercase, sometimes you have a lowercase field to ensure that I always have the same values for the same person, and then I get the last argument for the incident number. Then do I join the information that I have available? But I would output this. You would see, hey, I have some incidents that have been closed. They are informational, but there is no context yet on how quickly should someone have reacted on the incident, because that's all information that I provide using this additional table. So what I have done, I join the SLA variables based on the severity and I extend some content. So I will say, all right, what is the time to respond, which is basically that I calculated this in this case, the time in minutes between the first modified time and the created time. There are some limitations here. If you, for example, have some automation running that does some assignments, so be aware of this. Do not always check first in your environment if that will work. Otherwise, you may need to check, all right, well, it's the first time someone actually put it on their name, or there are some things that you maybe can check, but this depends a bit on your environment variables. Then I extend, all right, did the time to respond, is that smaller or equal than the time to respond to the incidents based on SLA? If in this case, I only want to have the field reporting, then I project the results to see, all right, how in this case I have an informational alert. It took me 570 minutes to respond to the incident. And according to my own calculations, I should have responded in 480 minutes of the incident. In this case, you see, hey, I did not meet my own requirements. If I don't, and yes, this is a test environment, so apparently I'm not even making it in my test environment. I should probably automate the responses. I also do a pie chart on the statistics. So if I would get this a bit there and there, I think the majority of the query is the same. Let's quickly see if I have, well, apparently I did a very poor job and only, or a very good job, because there was one incident where I failed. And then at the end, I also create a CSV with all the incidents that have been closed to maybe the report not good enough, and I send the report onwards. I think that's also what I have here. Then you can get reports like this, where you have an attachment with all these CSV results. You can see right from yesterday, or at least the time that I got this lovely email and I did actual work on my test environment. The majority of the 85% of the incidents have been within the SLA. 14% have not been in the SLA. I put the SLA levels in there. What are the incidents where I failed the SLA? How long did it take? And maybe your SOC leads want to have a talk with the analyst that didn't work well. So I have to talk to myself in this case to tell myself to speed up the investigation and to respond to those incidents timely. And then you can also get, for example, attachments based on the KQL output with all the results, all the details that you may need. I think this is the majority of the demo. I still have, I think, one more about automation. It's a very simple logic app. So basically what this logic app does, maybe let's do the full story here. Let me quickly open Sentinel. So in case a Sentinel incident triggers in this environment, an automation rule is executed. Let's quickly go there. In this case, so every time an incident is triggered, I run the automation device info logic app to enrich it. What does it do? Well, it gets the host of the event, and it's basically logic app. And then for each device that I find, I run a KQL query. You say, right, this host name, I want to get device information. If I quickly run this query, you would see what I would get. Let's do this for now. Let's see if we have data. Let's put maybe a bit more data in between. So you would see, all right, what would I get? I would get the device name that is onboarded. I would see what is the OS platform that I'm responding to, what is the OS version, what is the public IP if I have a public IP, what is the device type, how is this device joined, and what is the exposure level of the device. Just to give me a quick summary of what device am I responding to, especially if you work in very big enterprise environments or you are working for an SSP, you maybe have no clue what the actual device is that is related to the incident. This can quickly give you an idea of what the information is. And then it queries this and it will put this as a comment to the incident. So each time I have a host in my incident, it will enrich the host with device-based information. And I think based on the talk that I've done, you can see that a lot, as long as you have the data available in KQL, you can either automate it to logic apps, to function apps, to the scripts that you have to get quite, let's say, quite very interesting results, which can also support some of the functions that the platforms themselves maybe do not support yet, but the automation tooling can really help there. I think that is the last demo that I had. Any questions, topics that you have, then feel free to go for it. While we're at it, I will quickly look for the links for the logic apps that I shared. You can already give it a quick try.
This is super cool, and I think also super inspirational. I really also like the comparison And yes, you're right. Now even in the Microsoft Docs is basically recommending to use the newer Crave API to no longer use the Defender ATP API that we had. I'm just curious on your opinion before I'll share something. Do you also use things like runbooks and do you have an opinion on when to do things in Logic App and when in maybe other ways?
Yes, give me 1 second and I have all the Logic App links available, otherwise we'll forget. Nice enrichment. And then we still had SLA. I do have an opinion. I think it depends a bit, especially if you have very easy cases. And it depends on two things, I think. One, what is the knowledge that you have internally? Because Logic Apps can be quite easy to implement, especially if they are not that big, then they are quite all right. If you really want to build very big and complex enrichments, then go for function apps or go for other automation solutions that you may have. Because at some point in time, the Logic App will not be readable anymore, and just use a Logic App to call a function app, and that's it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I make the same experience. I'll quickly share something. I mean, it's a very easy use case, but when I wanted to get, and this was to kind of bridge the gap of the TVM or some data not available in Sentinel that I wanted to keep for longer. So I basically, I mean, there were some other community approaches available with Logic App, etc. But as a consultant, and we work for companies, I also have to take into account who's the recipient, right? To actually continue to maintain that. And unfortunately, because people maybe have other priorities, I cannot expect from every recipient that they know Logic Apps and all that stuff, but PowerShell is something that I consider as a minimum level of expertise, and also about readability. But maybe to just iterate on also using API. So in this case, we're just, declaring what we need. Of course, I have the PowerShell modules loaded in this automation account. So the security graph. And then all I do is basically define a query. And I execute the start mg security hunting query commandlet. Of course, this could also be done like Bert-Jan pointed out. This is basically like if you have a connector in Logic App or if you would use the REST call. And this basically does a similar thing, right? So you define your query. Of course, in this case, you would not have to specify any credentials because the credentials are managed by the user assigned or system assigned managed identity that belongs to this automation account, of course. And then in this case, I am, bring that information into a log analytics custom table. Yeah. So just as an example, just another way how to leverage the API and run your custom queries. But I kind of have a similar thought. There's pros and cons with both approaches.
Yeah, I think overall, as long as you invest in an automation solution, that's what you should go for. And then if you have chosen one, probably go continue with that as you already built the knowledge while you're starting it. But there can also be advantages into combining multiple at once.
Yeah. No, I believe everyone, whether an MSSP or running their own internal security operations, will take great benefit from what you have shown here. Yeah.
that's the goal.
Yeah. Cool. So let's see if we have any questions other than nice movies. If it's funny, I see some from Philip. If it's funny, I add them to the show notes. Okay. Good. You got kudos from Philip. Let me see if we have any questions. This was from Bert-Jan. Andrew says thanks. Okay, great. We met your expectations of this session. Good. Then Wesley. By the way, thank you, Wesley. I recently see an uptake in your LinkedIn posts that are quite interesting. Cool. Okay. No other questions. Okay. Great. Then if there's no further questions, Bert-Jan, anything you want to add? You mentioned, right, you're gonna post some stuff, so everybody stay tuned on KQLready.com, right?
Yeah. Yes, I'll post some stuff there. And the majority of the Logic apps themselves are already available. So I posted the links already in the chat. They are already available.
Like the new action types, right? You posted, I think, back in January. Yeah.
Did not even put a new action type link in there. I'll make sure it's there.
Yeah.
Showing too much.
By the way, speaking about action types, I know, I mean, I belong to that species, it's not all about hunting, but, what can we get out of the logs? And I kind of knew it, but Olaf Hartung pointed it out in a recent post. I don't know where. There's nowadays so much channels like Teams and Twitter. But if you want to hunt and find information of who made changes to your Defender XDR settings, so if you want to audit that, like, hey, Bert-Jan, why did you change the advanced feature settings? Basically, what you need to do is you have to make sure that you have the advanced auditing, and now don't get confused, in Exchange Online enabled, because that's the unified audit log. Then, if you are lucky and you have Defender for Cloud Apps enabled, make sure that you have the Office 365 connector, app connector connected. And then, if all goes well, you will be able to hunt for Cloud App events, filter on, I believe in Cloud App events, they call it workload, right? Where you distinguish between this was in Exchange, in OneDrive, in Office 365, whatever. And apparently now also Defender, I think they still call it Defender 365 as the workload. And then if you're lucky, you should see your audit logs or your events of who took an action. You should be able to find in that log. Yeah.
Alex, while we're doing this lovely presentation, I already enriched your content. I put the blog that I wrote on this already in there and all the 5 or 10 queries. So indeed, also the, I think settings change is in there. Advanced feature disabled, I put in there. But I think the query speaks for itself. So then you can quickly change it.
Okay. Yeah.
And I fully agree. This is something to add to what Alex says. If you have not enabled this unified audit log integration in Defender yet, please do so, because you can really detect and respond to abuse if you see it in your environment.
Cool. Yeah, that's it. I'm just going to share that for everyone quickly. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay. Oh yeah, you already brought it up a while ago. Yeah, sometimes it's, you know things. I mean, when I read this morning, I was like, oh yeah, I know this, but maybe now I thought mention it. Yeah, exactly.
It really sounds like my brain, Alex, that sometimes I have a KQL query, I know I wrote it, but then I need to find in my own repository where I wrote it to remember again what I did.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the whole cool thing about community stuff, right? I mean, sometimes I can I don't have it with KQL queries, but I used to work for HP many years ago, and I'm 100% sure, certain statement of works and maybe the wrong use of English, or because at the time I had spent so much time thinking about a paragraph or phrase, and then 5 years later at the other end of the world, you see that back, and you're like 99% sure, like this cannot be coincidence, Uh, I might have written this. And actually, once I asked someone, where did you get this from? And actually, it turned out that he worked also at HP at the other end of the world, and somehow some content got crossed. Yeah, cool. Yeah. No, but going back to the community thing, I mean, we share, right? And we hope that either someone builds more out of it, or even better, and I talk about that about what did I do last month, where actually people provide feedback, right? I mean, it's great if everybody doesn't like, but personally, I even appreciate more not just a like, but either a comment or even pointing me out, like Alex, you're wrong, and maybe you should do better next time. Of course, in a friendly way. Yeah. Okay, so if there's nothing more, let me actually then bring up the what did you do this month with KQL? So first of all, thanks Bert-Jan for again a very interesting session, and I really look forward to at the latest seeing you on the 6th of November at our KustoCon. So again, for everyone, Bert-Jan and Johnny, they will run a KQL workshop in the morning, and they will also present their own session in the afternoon. Session title yet to be presented.
Thanks for having me,
Good.
Alex. And otherwise, see you again in 3 years in KQLCafe.
Yeah. No. I promise you, it won't take as long again. Good. So what did you do with KQL this month? What I did, I read a blog post from Microsoft where they are working on Defender for Office 365 to improve detection of non-RFC compliant emails. Where basically at some stage, they plan to move them into junk, quarantine, and whatsoever. So I thought, well, what could be the potential impact? Because, yes, so basically what you see here, it's a best guess of a regex that should, basically find all compliant RFC email notation. And yeah, give it a try in your environment. I saw a number of emails that basically match the following. Let me quickly share and unshare. Johnny once showed me a very cool thing on the screen to go move stuff into an area, but I'm too old for that shit. So I just unshare and share. So there are a number of reasons where email is considered non-compliant, right? Like, invalid characters, spaces, and whatsoever. And of course, they are used by the bad guys. But as I had to find out by running this query in a couple of customer environments, apparently they are also just used for legitimate stuff. Looked like very old stuff, some internal email forwarding, SMTP servers, monitoring tools whatsoever. But there, it's equally important that you are aware of such emails floating in your environment, because as soon as Microsoft starts to, drop them or block them or change behavior, you might want to be aware of that, and maybe you have some time to now change your, monitoring system from 3 feet down forward / Netherlands / whatever incorrect email notation. Yeah. So that's one. And then I had an interesting gig a couple of months ago, which didn't, I would not call it a detection rule, by no means, by the way, but more of a, hunting query to find out what's out there. And I went on the search for portable apps. So this company knew that, some people do use portable apps or misuse their privileges. Although I can disclose it's a financial customer, so they already use quite some technologies to avoid, non-approved executables. But as always, that those policies cannot be deployed to all devices. And before further enforcing, they also wanted to make sure they are not breaking any legitimate business process that maybe have been built on top of some, portable apps and whatsoever. So yeah, here's a query. Portable executable. Now, this is what I meant before when I shared this. Actually, someone pointed out, well, Alex, but depending on how you compile your application, and even if you go to the C Windows folder, you will see a lot of individual, like a control panel, etc., that also have this, this file type flag. Device process events, portable. So where we have something in the name, of course, we don't catch anything, but we can catch a lot. Again, of course, not looking at the file properties itself. So as you can see here, going back quickly, I'm looking at attributes within the file type or the product name. But then, of course, we can also potentially identify portable apps based on, they're not executed by the system. So the hypothesis is here, of course, someone downloaded or brought in a portable app. I then also excluded some drives or included. You can play with that. Some people store portable apps on file shares whatsoever. But typically people download them, so I want to know where stuff is executed from a download folder, from a desktop folder, etc. But I exclude, for example, the C Windows and subfolders, because the assumption here is, those users are not local admin, they basically they download and execute them. And so you can go on, and here I also excluded some local accounts. Of course, you would include them. Maybe someone create a scheduled task with a portable app. So again, this is not really a detection query, but I can tell you we did found in this roughly 10,000 endpoint environment quite some portable apps, some for legitimate use, but they ended up to be packaged and be added properly to the software catalog, and others that people rather would not like to see people using, because sometimes those portable apps, depending where they are downloaded from, like chip.de and so forth, might also bring in stuff that you don't necessarily want to have in your corporate environment. Yeah. So yeah, give that a try, and if you have any feedback, let me know. Good. And with that, because my friend Johnny is somewhere on this planet in a nice holiday, so a little bit shorter today. I honestly had no time to work on any Learn KQL, but I think I hopefully brought enough news, and there's enough KQL stuff going on. You can try out again Kusto Detective Agency, what was it? Yeah, the Just Another Kusto Hacker competition that's going on. Yeah. As always, we do our best to post this online, the recording. I'll get in touch with Bert-Jan to get all the pointers for the show notes. And then, yeah, hopefully see you next month again with, let me quickly double check again. Next month, exactly. We have our friends from Greece here. So that's Mikhailos. One day I get his name right. And Christos Galankopoulos. Okay. I'll have to practice on that one so I can get that right when they're on the show. Good. Many thanks, and see you next month. thank you all for attending.
Thank you.
Bye, Bert.
Bye.
Dankjewel.